Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 best podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, recommended by LinkedIn Sales as one of 15 innovating sales influencers to follow. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, my guest talks about how, as they've grown over the years, they've had to kind of take their values and make it into more commercial principles. And one of the core to that is feedback is a gift. So we talked about how feedback has been pivotal, not only internally, but externally. And it's created a community of fans and advocates and helped the company future-proof its growth going forward. It's grown over the years to over 100 million. And we also talked about their recruitment strategy as well, and how their turnover is incredibly low. Very rare, very unusual within sales and the SaaS space. Also talking about how customers can try before they buy. There's so much in this conversation, you're really going to enjoy it. My guest is a senior hands-on sales leader and CRO of Redgate Software, who delivers a passionate, systematic approach to building teams and sales culture, generating results via customer-centric techniques. A big advocate for hiring women into sales roles and embedding a culture of ethical selling. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, Cassi Roper.
Thank you, Janice. Really excited to be here.
Well, do you know, I have been harassing you for God knows how many years, about the last 6 years, and finally I've got you here. So, you know, I'm really excited about this, Cassi. We had a really great conversation in Nashville at the go-to-market event by Pavilion. And so we had lots of fun there. So I've been harassing you even more after that.
You finally pinned me down.
Yes, I've got you. I've got you. I was becoming a bit of a stalker, I know, but I don't apologize for it. So, Cassi, we had great conversations about women in sales and your passion and what you want to achieve. And the other thing I'm stalking you about is that we did talk about we're going to set something up in the UK. And you're constantly on a plane. So I'm going to have to lasso you now, not just stalk you, but lasso you as well. So tell me more about your passion, your thoughts around this whole area of women in sales.
But you know, I never really thought too much about it, because when you start your career, and you're in a male-dominated industry, you just are like, you don't think too much about it, particularly in the early stages. So I was just surrounded by men, like, but my entire career, all of my managers have always been male, and I never really thought too much about it. And when I kind of stepped up into management and leadership, the thing that I noticed is when I started hiring, it's when I became a hiring manager, what I could see was the females that, one, I wasn't getting enough of them through the door. So I wasn't getting enough interviews for females because they just weren't putting themselves forward. And we kind of know, if you write a job description and a man can do 4 of the things on the list, that like a small percentage of women are going to put themselves forward because they don't tick all of the boxes. Whereas the men put themselves forward even if they tick the same amount, they're confident enough to do that. So I started by looking and thinking, I'm just not getting any females through the door. And then I realized, when I was interviewing the candidates and I was getting females through the door, they weren't confident enough to go into the interview process and feel really confident that they could get the job. So they were often like putting themselves down in an interview, and there was real confidence issues there. And I just thought, there's just a fundamental problem in our industry here, and I'm not going to get the best candidates, because the best candidates aren't the people that shout the loudest. They're not the people that come in and are the most confident, but I'm not even getting them through the door. But trying to solve that problem is incredibly difficult. There's not like one big bullet you can fire that's going to solve that overarching problem. It's just a host of things that you can do in order to help it, I guess. And I'm not saying I've solved it by any means. Part of it is a huge like industry problem, but part of it is like, what can I do as a leader within Redgate to help that? And that's where I've spent quite a few years trying to get my head around changes that we can make, both with getting females in the door, but also making them feel more included on the sales floor. So yeah, that's kind of I guess where my passion lies, because I think that there's just a problem there, and I'd really love to help solve it. And I always talk to industry experts like yourself, and other people who particularly the people we met in Nashville as well at the Pavilion conference, and they're facing the same. They know we have a problem, and they really want to face it head on and try and do something about it. So I think that's where my passion lies.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that I have all the answers there.
No, but you've got the experience of it and you have the awareness of it. So that's the most important thing. And do you know what, Cassie? You've done the first most important thing is you're a woman leader in sales. The stats tell us that when you have a female sales leader, they naturally attract a diversity, not just women, but a diverse team, because they think, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So that's the first barrier you've already overcome. And the thing is now is, I think, and you are, to be visible, to be talking about it so that more people become aware that it is possible. So I think that, you know, you're doing great things. And, you know, of course, there's more to be done in the industry. But I always say to sales leaders, the first thing you need to do is recruit a female sales leader, you know, or a diverse sales leader, because that is part of the problem. We haven't got enough in leadership.
Way harder than it sounds, though. That's the trouble,
Incredibly
isn't it?
hard.
There's just not many of us out there.
There aren't, but that means then you have to look in different places, don't you? Because don't you find that sales leadership or leadership of the revenue generating operation, the person that's doing that isn't necessarily a great salesperson. I'm not talking about you, but just generally, it's not what we traditionally do is we promote a top salesperson, and then they're often, more often than not, actually statistically, a disaster at leadership. An
I
absolute
agree. I
disaster.
agree. I agree. I will fully admit I wasn't the top salesperson. I definitely got right near the top, but I wasn't necessarily in that category of being, you know, the one star, like shining star that was 300% of target every year. I was up there and I worked really hard. But I've made that mistake before, promoting senior leaders because they think that's the only track they've got towards earning more money or towards like career progression, when actually it's just not right for them. And you just have to make sure that you're assessing for the things that, like, what are they passionate about? And when they're not passionate about managing people or leadership or you know, like the thought of getting results through others is really difficult for individual contributors. They like to be in control of their own destiny.
Yeah.
So I've made that mistake very early on in my career, and I've never made it again because I just see the pattern in a lot of organizations, which is, promote your top performers because they're the people that should be managers. They can teach everybody how to do it. But the truth is they don't want to. They just want to go out and earn money for themselves. And that's fine.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
keep on.
The thing is, the industry is continuing to make that mistake. You know, individual contributors, it's all about I, and leadership and managing a team is always all about them. And it's the opposing thing, really, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then it is possible. There aren't as many diverse people in leadership. If we recognize it's not about the top sellers, then actually it could be somebody that is not all about the I and is all about the them, and they're in the wrong role and they should be in leadership. So isn't it about identifying what is the right characteristics for leadership, which isn't necessarily the right characteristics for top sales producers, and, you know, nurturing those straight into leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's difficult as well because you've got to just do regular skills assessments and understand what are the different skills that that people are exhibiting. Like I'm a big fan. I was watching something last night. It was the Sastra talk by Dalmesh at HubSpot, and he was saying, I'm all about leaning into your strengths and ignoring the weaknesses. Like if you can double down on your strengths, don't spend too much time focusing on your weaknesses and trying to make them better. Just like spend all your time, you know, excelling at what you're great at. And I think those things come through. They're coming through at interview. You can actually get those traits coming through at interview. So we do this different way of hiring. So particularly as we've begun to scale, we hire en masse. So I say en masse. We do like pockets of 3 to 5 people at a time. It's very time efficient, and we run assessment days to pull in graduates or entry level folks. And during that assessment day, we assess skills, and we use something called Phoenix 51 platform. So Lee McQueen, a few years ago, he won The Apprentice. I don't know if you remember Lee McQueen. He runs these assessment days. He's got this platform that has all your skills assessments on it. And throughout that, you run different tasks. So it's kind of like The Apprentice for the day, where you're running all these different tasks. But what you see is different traits shining through from different people. And you don't get that in a normal interview process. So in an interview process, you'll sit there, and a lot of people are guided by, if they're graduates in particular, they've been taught how to pass an interview. So that the things they tell you are exactly the same at every interview, and you're just like, okay. But in this skills assessment, you can't avoid it. It's like team-based activities or coming up with new ideas, and you see the people that are factoring in and considering other people's points of view. You see people that are nurturing and boosting people's confidence. That's like the traits of a manager that you want to see, and you can see that at that skills assessment time. That's difficult to see at an interview level, because people can talk the talk, but it doesn't necessarily come through in action. Whereas when you run a skills assessment day, you can actually see it. And that's where a lot of our managers have come from. So a lot of our senior leadership have come through assessment days like that, where we've spotted those skills when they're interacting with others. I think that's just a really successful way of pulling it out.
So how do you use the assessment day also for the kind of entry level sales professionals as well?
Absolutely. So it's we're not just looking for managers. Like what we'll often see is, out of 5 people that we hire, 4 of them, like we run sales skills tests and different role play sessions, and you'll see people that are just really great individual contributors and really solid sellers from the start, even when they haven't had any training. Quite often people are working weekends, they're working lots of hours, but they haven't necessarily got experience in software, but you can see the sales skills. And they're like, yeah, I'd love to work like a 9 to 5 job. I'd love to work like Monday to Friday, not have to work weekends. And I haven't got any skills, and I'm a bit not really confident, but you know that they can sell. And so quite often, out of the 4 or 5 people we hire within a group, you'll see one maybe that's got the management traits to push into management and leadership eventually. And then you'll see 3 or 4 that have got either very customer success heavy, or they're very good at specific sales skills and listening and asking great questions. So you get a really strong variety. But the platform that Lee's built at Phoenix 51 kind of lets you break down the different skill sets, so that you can identify, like, everybody kind of grades it on your management team to understand this person's really strong in this skill. Therefore, that's something that we're really looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we use a platform that's been going for over 25 years, and it's only sales specific. There's a lot of assessments that will, like you've got the kind of DISC profile, and there's an assumption that if you're direct, you're good at sales. And as you say, you're introverted, I'm introverted. In actual fact, introverted people are often better at sales, just like women are better at sales. They're great listeners, and you've mentioned that before. But this whole a database that's been collected, it's only assessments on salespeople. So we know in over 200 industries, over 100 countries, for all the different leadership, sales professionals, even customer success, what great looks like in that industry for your market, because we've got over 1.5 million of these assessments, so that we've got a benchmark. And that's what kind of we use, because it's sales specific, and it means that it's predictive as well, and has a guarantee with the recruitment process, so that within the first within 12 months, over 90% of the people that have recommended are in the top quartile, guarantee, because we know what great looks like. So that's the kind of way we do it. And I think some of the traits that you talk about, listening, is so important in sales, and often that doesn't necessarily come through traditional methods of measuring that.
Oh, definitely. So I was laughing recently because I did an interview, and uh, the person at hand was talking about how they really thought that listening was really important, but then proceeded to talk through the entire interview, and not really, I couldn't get a word in, and I just thought there's not really much listening. So you're saying that that's important, but not really doing it in the
Demonstrating it.
interview. You're not demonstrating it at all. Lots of people say that. Lots of people talk about how important it is, but it's really hard. You've got to hold yourself back and really listen. I mean, we run a few tasks where people have to try and, any kind of role play that we do is mainly around, are you actually understanding what the problem is that the customer's got? Or are you so busy thinking, I really want to sell them this thing? And that's just not the way that you sell. Like, you have to understand their pain points. You have to understand what's truly keeping them up at night to understand if we're going to be able to solve them. And if we're not, then we need to walk away. Don't just try and sell them something that they don't want. I think some of the best, so there's listening skills, but some of the best reps that I've ever hired, and managers, um, it's not just listening, but it's curiosity. I think curiosity, and you see it at interview. So they're really curious. They're not just asking questions that um, they've been told to ask in their university course normally, or the ones that go with a standard, interview. They're actually curious about everything, and so the types of questions they ask keep me on my feet. Like, they're like, wow, how am I going to answer this one? That's a difficult one. And I see it in all of our top performers. They're absolutely curious. If they get product feedback from a customer, for example, they're curious they don't just give it to the development team. They say, let me understand this. Here's what the customer said. One, can you explain it to me? Two, can you articulate whether we can solve this problem? So they're not just like, here's some feedback, do something with it product. They're like, hey, I want to understand it. It's going to make me better. Like, what does it mean? Explain to me what it means. And it's that curiosity all the time that really helps people develop. And I think you can see that at interview with the types of questions that you get asked.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that you're obviously the process is working well for you, because you say that you've got little turnover in the way that you assess people, and track the metrics for performance. So, how did you come across this? Why aren't more people, putting that much investment into the sales process? Because I know certainly when I was speaking at the GTM conference, they asked people, sales leaders in the audience, to raise their hand how many have made a bad sales hire. And literally, I know the answer, 100%. And the cost could be anything from 100,000 to 1 million. They can lose you customers, but we continue to make the mistake. So why is it that you and Redgate have honed this process so that it's very much aligned to your culture and the way your success as well, really?
Um, so we definitely have crazy low turnover of salespeople. When we interview candidates, and I've got some of my sales managers or sales reps on the call, and they're saying, I've been here 7 years, I've been here 10 years. Some people might find that alarming, but they're still as engaged as they were on day one. And that's definitely not the industry trend. Like, sales turnover is high. They're jumping from different job role to different job role. It helps us that we're a private company. We haven't taken any funding, and our co-founder is the chairman of the board, and that's definitely helped. I think when you've got lots of VC backing and there's huge targets to achieve, you often see higher turnover because there's hiring rounds, and then there's the opposite. But I actually think it's difficult. I mean, I've been at Redgate for almost 18 years. There's obviously something there because I haven't left. a lot of it comes down to the customer, like customer values, how closely we keep our customers to us. So it was a real shock to me when I started at Redgate how much our customers loved us. It was kind of embarrassing when I was talking to customers at how much they loved our products. It was like we were superstars because we'd help them solve these really difficult problems, and we do it at a very cheap price, and we support the community that we sell into, and they really appreciated it. So there's an element of that that makes your job quite enjoyable. If you're solving really difficult problems in an ingeniously simple way for somebody, and they're really loving you, that makes you feel really good about the product you're selling. So there's an element of that. Then there's an element of our company values, which a lot of people talk about their company values but don't properly embed them. So they're on their website and they say, we care about this and we care about that. And then you go to work there and it's just not, they're not seen across the business. So we have company values that are things like we're reasonable, and we're reasonable with customers, we're reasonable with everybody that works within Redgate. We're transparent, like transparency helps us improve. So we don't hide things. If we make mistakes, we talk about them and we fix them. We do our best work in teams, like collaboration. And then when our customers succeed, so do we. These are the types of things that at exec level we talk about and we embed, because they're continuously mentioned. Well, are we being reasonable when it comes to that? Are we should we be more transparent when it comes to these things? That cascades down at a company, but it's been there since the start. So since we were a really small company, it's been embedded. Those values have been embedded, and as we've grown, it's just the job. I see it as my job and the rest of the exec team to ensure that we're still true to our values. I don't ever want us to be one of those companies that talks a good game but then doesn't deliver against it. And I think that that's one of the reasons people stay. You know, when I just had my sales kickoff or revenue kickoff, because we obviously have all of the different sort of go-to-market teams present at that. And throughout it, I'm talking about the different values that we have and how much we care about them still. So everything that we're doing this year sort of talks to those values.
The sound has just gone really low for some reason. Can you say something again?
Yeah, sure. Can
All
you
right,
hear me
okay.
okay?
It
Yeah.
seems to have come back. The
Are we
sound
back?
slowly was tailoring off. We'll cut this bit out, but yeah, I'm glad we're back. I don't know what happened then. Okay, now, but I heard you all. It was great, but I was just wanting to double check. We'll
It
cut
might
this.
be on my side. Let me know if it goes again.
Right. Okay. No problem. No problem. All right. Okay. So you talked about transparency in terms of, you know, one of the strategies that enables buyers to buy. But also, you know, I know that you talk about enabling buyers through the testing of products. So tell me, you know, more about that. How does that work in your relationship with your customers and your buyers? How do they test your products?
So I guess I was talking to somebody about this recently, because I don't know if you've ever, so I was scrolling through like Instagram or something, and I saw this app and I thought, well, that's great and it looks really good. So fill in this form and you can use this app. And then they said, pay us, and then you can see if it works. And I thought, well, if you just gave me 30 days to test it out, to use it, I would then probably lock myself in for a couple of years, because if it's good enough, you would do that. I think you need buyers to get to value quickly, and if you put a blocker in there or making them pay straight away, you're not going to get that. So we've always had like ease of use, get buyers to value. We don't want people to say, buy our thing, it does all of these things, pay us, and then we'll show you it working. They need to get that thing up and running, and the easier you can do that, the more successful they'll be. So in the early days of Redgate, we had sort of shrink wrap software or download, try, buy. So download this product, you can try it, and then if you're interested in it, you can buy it. If not, it will stop working. But it's like quick to value. They're getting value very quickly, and they can see how much difference it's going to make. And once they buy it, we can then work with them to explore all the different things that they could be using with it. As long as they can find value in one of the features that we've got, that's a good indication. And we've got products that do that really quickly. So you can open up and sort of management studio and start typing, and very quickly you're using our IntelliSense tool to help them write code quicker. So time to value is immediate. So they can start using it and immediately start seeing value. What we don't want to do is put a blocker in the way and say, well, you've got to give us some money before you do that. I just think it's really important. It's harder when you get into the enterprise space to be able to do that, but certainly if the likes of, I don't know, Spotify made it really difficult for you to actually test out whether you could use their platform, you wouldn't put your credit card details in. So I guess that the strategy that enable buyers to buy for us is getting to value quickly. And one of the ways in which we do that is allowing them to test the products effectively without having us block them along the way. And I think putting credit card details in is a blocker.
Yeah.
Like I said, if that Instagram app that I wanted to test had asked, well, it asked me for my credit card details and I didn't put them in. If they'd given me 2 weeks to test it and then asked me for my details, I'll have found the value in it and I'd sign up, and they've lost me as a customer now. So I think that's, I think it's really important. So you can go on our website and use and test any of our products.
That is a great strategy. It's certainly like a lot of founders need to look at this strategy as a way to kind of like test their products in the market. And also, I've always said, I worked in sales and then moved into customer experience. And I've always said that your customers, your best innovators and creators. And if you get them to test your product, they'll always come up with new innovations, things that will work better for them. If all of us have worked with products and thought, if it only did this, it would be better.
Oh,
you want to get that kind of feedback, really, don't you? You want people using it.
Your customers can write your strategy for you. If you talk to enough of them and ask the right questions, they'll tell you all of their pain points. Even if they're not talking about the specific product at hand, they'll write your marketing collateral for you. They'll tell you what they needed to read in order to understand the problem at hand. They'll guide you in all of those things. We have so I talked about our values at Redgate. We have commercial principles, because as we've scaled, we got to about 200, and I thought the values are great, but I want some specific commercial principles that we embed as we scale, so that we don't lose sight of being a great sales organization. And one of them is feedback is a gift, and that isn't just, hey, let's feedback on each other about how we could improve. It's like feedback from the customer needs to go to your product team, and it needs to go to your marketing team, and they'll start writing. They'll tell you what collateral you've got wrong. They'll tell you if they're reading it even. So if they're not reading it, they'll tell you very quickly why. They'll tell you if there's features missing. They'll tell you pain points that they have that could help guide your roadmap. It's absolutely pivotal to being successful. The challenge is, as you scale, how do you make that continue? So as a smaller organization, I think about 15 years ago, I thought I've absolutely cracked the code on this thing. I've got product management, I've got product marketing, all standing around a whiteboard with my sales team, with all these post-it notes. I've tasked the sales team to collect as much feedback as possible. I put some spiffs around it, and then I've themed it. These are the things all of our customers want, and I was running it really regularly. And then you scale. And like, how do you do that when you've got an office in America? You've got an office in Australia, you've got one in Germany. And you're like, well, that feedback, we can't all stand around a whiteboard anymore. And Mural isn't kind of cutting it for us. We're trying to do that, but you're not getting as much engagement. So you have to just think of different ways to collect that feedback. But it's still as pivotal now. Now we're a $100 million business as it was when we were $1 million. In fact, it was a bit more important in the early days because the product was more immature. And now our product's way more mature, but it's still so important. You're the sales team and the voice of the customer success team and the voice of the customer. Like, they have to be feeding back into the business, and that's how you create a successful software business. Like, customer feedback, it plays such a pivotal role in that.
I think it goes not only just a software, a business where, I often speak to sales leaders and their teams and revenue leaders, and talk so much about when customers complain, it's a gift. It's a gift. You absolutely want to sit them down, love them to death, and gather all of that information, because they're all too willing. That, all of the barriers have just come down, and they're going to tell you everything, and you really need to listen up And we're always so much afraid of complaints. And actually, it's the biggest gift you can have that completely can change your business. It's about your attitude towards them, really, rather.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, like we're well, I say we're quite fortunate, but we're unfortunate if that we don't get we don't get any customer complaints as such, which is good. So if we did, it'd probably be quite beneficial for us because we could action it. But what we do get is people willing to spend a lot of time with us to tell us what they want to see, what problems they want to solve. They invest in Redgate, so we support them. You know, we have lots of advocates across the globe that really promote our software for us because they love using it and they feedback all the time. This is what the industry is telling us. So it's not just the customers that are telling us, it's our sort of, we call them our friends of Redgate or our advocates that come back and say that this is what big groups of people are telling us.
And I think that's so important. It's about creating that community, really. And it really stems with, from the very beginning, how you've honed your culture so that you have created a whole community around you, which is absolutely ideal. But also, it's very much future-proofing the business, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously one of the key indicators that you have if your customers are succeeding is if they stay with you. And we're pretty fortunate. We've got like 500,000 customers, and most of them have the people that started with us many years ago are still with us today. They've continued on the journey. What's interesting is when they bought from us, they were software developers, and now they're CTOs because over 15 years or 20 years, they've progressed their career and they've just started embedding our technology across all the different teams. But yeah, the retention rate of our products and the usage numbers are really strong. So it gives you real confidence that we're doing the right thing and we're solving customers' real problems. It's not just shelfware. You know, it's doing what it says on the tin.
Yeah, and kudos to you. You know, you've been with the company a long time and have nurtured a lot of that through the organization.
It's quite I often find it quite entertaining when I'm talking to people that I sold to when I was a junior, when I was entry level and I started at Redgate, and I was just like, I didn't know what sprint reviews were. I didn't know how software was developed. I didn't know how we marketed it. I barely knew any of the technical terms that they were using because I wasn't a software developer. And I speak to them now and they're like, Cassie, do you remember me? You sold me this thing. And I'm like, I'm really sorry that I didn't have very much domain expertise back then because, you know, I'd barely used, I'd barely been in the database world. You know, I didn't come from that industry sector. So it does make me chuckle. But yeah, they're still with us today. But the product, as I say, we've got incredibly strong products. So anything that I failed at back then as a salesperson, the product made up for, luckily.
So, Cassie, who is your hero or shero?
Oh, who's my hero or shero? So that's a really difficult one. So I always find any rags to riches story that you see incredibly inspiring. So like the likes of Mark Cuban or Oprah Winfrey, like just self-made success, where they're not saying, "Oh, I was only given 2 hotels to start a business." You know, they actually started with I couldn't afford to go to university. I had to work my way up from the ground up, and you know, I wasn't given very much, but here's all the things that I did, and their success stories are just inspiring. Every time I hear them talk and the new things that they're doing and the new industry sectors they're moving into and new ways in which they're helping people, I think it's inspiring because nothing was given to them on a plate. They had to earn every minute of it. So, yeah, I'd
And they're
say
still humble to that
they're
as
still
well, which
humble.
is great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't
yeah.
know about Mark Cuban. Is he humble? Yeah, maybe, maybe.
On a good day.
On a good day.
All right, Cassie, how can listeners get hold of you?
LinkedIn is the best way. I'm on LinkedIn most of the time. I don't have Twitter. I probably should jump on that bandwagon, but yeah, pretty much LinkedIn is the best way, and I'm on that quite often.
Right.
Many
Good.
times on your posts, Janice, or
Thank you for that.
something to do with Pavilion, or maybe Wednesday Women. Any of
Yeah,
those groups, I'm on those as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Cassie, and I'm definitely, now I've got you, I can, I'm going to book in your diary this time next year,
Yeah,
again,
you
because
you should. I've absolutely loved every minute of it, Janice. Absolutely
brilliant.
loved it.
Thank you very much, Cassie, for being a guest.
Thank you very much, Janice.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.